What's up, my dudes? Old AC gonna be on that big 450 next year, apparently, and I don't know how the hell he's gonna do that because he's barely even raced the 250, but that's what all these different news outlets and interviewers are saying out there, and trust me, I totally understand you can't always believe everything you hear in the news. Actually, you can't hardly believe anything you hear in the news these days, but this is way more of a speculation style video for sure, so always keep that in the back of your mind. I don't even know if this is going to actually happen or if this is just, you know, that random backdoor word of mouth kind of information and it has no justification behind it whatsoever. I have no idea. I don't know if Adam Cianciarulo has really said anything on this. I don't know, but I'm just speaking of it from a point of, like, this is just kind of speculation and what I've heard and kind of what if kind of video here. So I think it's an interesting topic, talking about people going from the 250 class to the 450 class and kind of how they do that transition and how it affects their long-term career, because a lot of times that's actually a breaking point for a lot of these riders out there. And trust me, I totally understand that Adam Cianciarulo is 5,000 times better than I will ever be on a dirt bike. I'm not trying to take that away from him whatsoever, so don't get that twisted. I'm just speaking on this whole situation from a standpoint of almost more of like if I was a team owner and what I would be looking for in a rider and things like that, just from, you know, different things I've seen of how other 250 riders' careers have panned out and stuff like that. And I just don't think Adam Cianciarulo has had enough race time on a 250 yet. I don't know how they're actually justifying that he has had enough race time on it. I mean, trust me, he came out swinging, banging, won his first race ever, and that is really impressive. I mean, that was on like a Carmichael, Villapoto, Stewart status to come out and win your first race ever, because, I mean, the pro ranks is a lot different, and there's a lot to learn. So if you can come out and win your first race, I mean, that's pretty impressive right there, dude. And nobody will ever be able to take that away from him. And he, you know, that is really amazing. And I feel like a lot of that has really kept his career alive in a sense. Those first couple 2 or 3 races that he won, and then he tore his shoulder out of place, and then he kind of up and down with injuries there for a couple years, and had some okay finishes in outdoors. I think he actually got a second in outdoors last year, if I'm not mistaken. But then he comes back this year in supercross, and he gets like a 5th in the first race, and then he just keeps improving, and then he actually comes out and wins at Daytona, and then now he's falling back off a little bit there. But I don't know where people are getting the 450 idea from. I don't know how in the hell they're actually thinking that's a good decision at this point. Now, every once in a while you'll have those special occasions like with a Cole Seeley where, if I'm not mistaken, he never actually won a 250 championship, but he still got on an A-class 450 team, and that's because they actually let him ride the 450, and he just happened to do really good on it. So he's actually proven himself on a 450, but in Cianciarulo's case, he hasn't even really proved that he can last in a championship type environment. Not even mentioning a 450, and I mean, 450s are totally different. There is a bucket load full of just wicked 250 riders that you thought they were going to have an amazing 450 career, but then it just blows up once they get on a 450. It's like they just can't ride it at that top level. I think a lot of riders, they're really good at a 250 because a 250 is like, you know, you got to be just banging, wild kind of rider on the RPMs, kind of like what a Barsha would be. But once you get on a 450, it's a totally different bike, dude. It's, you know, you got to be a lot more patient, a lot more elegant with the bike. And you would be surprised how many people look like they're going to be amazing when they're on a 250. They'll go out there, win titles, do the whole 9 yards, and then they get on a 450 and they look like they've never won a race in their whole career, you know, and they never win a 450 race. It's just the 450 competition and how stacked it is and the way the racing is in the 450 and the consistency of it and everything. It's just, it's a whole nother realm of racing when you compare it to 250s, especially in supercross. And this is something I think a lot of people need to understand. in 250 Supercross, you know, they have two coasts, east and west. So if you go out there and win on a 250 in Supercross, half of your competition is in another coast. So, you know, you're basically doubling that once you get on a 450. Now, in outdoors, they all get together. But as far as Supercross, anyways, you got double the amount of chance of winning a race on a 250 in Supercross because, you know, your competition is split right down the middle. So you always got to keep that in mind. You know, let's say you got a third place in 250 West or something like that. Well, technically, if everybody was there and it was all coast combined, you probably would have got more like a sixth. So you see how much different that is? In the 450 class, everybody's just wicked, dude. There's no other way to explain that. 450 class, I mean, those dudes, there's no slacking. There's no, all those dudes are crazy, top level training. I mean, it is unreal how the 450 class has gotten. They're so, you can't crash and still get a good result in the 450 class. You just can't do it anymore. It is nothing like it was back in the Carmichael days where, you know, there's a couple dudes that could win. Now, I mean, even though Dungy and Tomac and some of those guys have kind of pulled ahead, and you're always going to have some people that pull ahead, it's just, there's so many more like B-list celebrity riders that could potentially win, whereas back in the day, I mean, they weren't really going to do that as much. But nowadays, you got 10 or 15 of those dudes that are past 250 championships in the 450 class. So, but I mean, you got a lot of those guys like Tickle, you got Weimer, you got Barsha. I mean, Barsha, his first year in the 450 class, did okay, but after that, he's kind of fell off. He did okay in that one outdoor season, but really, as an overall sense, like, Barsha's not really been doing too hot. And he won two 250 Supercross titles, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, looked like he was going to be the next big guy, but that's what I'm saying. When they get on the 450, everything changes. So it seems like to me, if you were a 250 rider, you would try to get as much 250 time as you possibly could so that when you do get on that 450 team, you're a lot more prepared for it, because in this day and age of motocross professional racing, you get about 2 years maximum to prove your worth. And if you don't prove it in that 2 years time, you're getting the boot, dog. Like, you're going. Like, you're not on that team anymore. So, I mean, I understand Adam Cianciarulo, you know, wants to get on a 450 as quick as possible, and maybe he feels like he's missed out a little bit, but that's the exact reason why he's not ready to be on a 450 yet, because he has barely even raced in these past 3 years on a 250. And a lot of the 250 class, it's like, it's proving you can actually do well in a long-term championship type environment with the pressure of a championship on your back and all that. And I feel like Cianciarulo really hasn't proven that part of his worth whatsoever. I mean, he's won some races, sure, and that's impressive, but he's never really finished that good at the end of a season, an end of a championship, you know. And that, if I was a 450 team owner, that's the number one thing I would look for, is how good did you finish at the end of the season. I don't give a shit about your race wins, because really at the end of the day, it's, can you win the championship? Yeah, race wins are good, but winning the championship is what really at the end of the day does it. And think about it like this. If every time a 250 rider won a championship, think about if they put those people on a 450 team. Every year you have 2 people that wins a 250 Supercross championship. That's crazy. And you could potentially have somebody completely different win the motocross championship. So theoretically, you could have, in 10 years worth of time, you could have 30 riders that needed to be on a 450 that had actually won championships. Now, I understand a lot of times it doesn't happen that way, because most of the time somebody that wins the West or East Coast wins the outdoors. But, you know, when you think of it like that, it seems like there wouldn't be any fucking room for somebody that's never even won a championship, you know what I mean? And then you got somebody like Malcolm Stewart that's won a 250 championship and didn't even get a 450 ride. It's like, what the hell? So then you think about Cianciarulo that's came out there and won a couple races, barely even raced in the past 3 years, and it's like, really? You think you're ready for a 450? I don't know, dog. That seems like a little much, but there's a lot of politics behind the the racing and the teams and all that behind the scenes that we don't know hardly anything about. I don't know how that shit works. I don't know if, Cianciarulo is Kawasaki 250 rides kind of coming to an end, so maybe this is his only opportunity to keep a halfway decent ride. He has to go to a 450 for whatever reason. I don't know. That may be the case, and if that is the case, then by all means go for it. But if Cianciarulo is just thinking, oh man, I'm tired of this 250, ready to get on a 450, I can't really agree to that, dude. I don't want to see him crush his career because he gets on that 450 too quick, and a lot of them do it, man. A lot of them, that as soon as they win something on a 250, they think they're ready for the 450, and it's just hardly ever that case, because the 450 class, it just takes so long to learn it properly. And it's a cutthroat world in the motocross business, because if you don't perform quickly, you're not going to last. There's just no way. And really, like, Cianciarulo's couple of wins there is all that's saving him right now. It truthfully is. It's all... Those wins that he got that first year and this win at Daytona is all that is saving him from being like a Michael Lessie and never getting on a professional team ever again. So it's really, he's in a dangerous zone. He truthfully is. And so maybe there's something in there contract-wise that's why he's saying I need to go to a 450, because maybe he's got an opportunity with a team like Millsaps is on or something, or Baggett, or one of those dudes. Maybe it's not an A-class team, maybe one of those B-class teams, maybe not full privateer, but maybe that's kind of his only option at this point. And if that's what it's came down to, then that's just what he has to do. So you always got to look at it from that standpoint of the politics of the racing teams. You just don't know. And a lot of times that's how decisions are made. But if I was a team owner, I would be way more likely to sign somebody like, Martin or whatever, and they let him race that 450 on Daytona, and he damn near won the thing. So, I would be way more likely to sign him than I would be, and I think he is actually signed to a 450 next year for the Honda or whatever, but I mean, even like Savatgy or just a lot of those other top dudes, I mean, I would be signing them to a 450. Osborne, even if he doesn't win the title, I would really consider him on a 450 way more than I would somebody like Cianciarulo. I don't know. That's just me looking at it from a team owner standpoint. And so, I don't know if there's any backbone to any of these rumors of him going to a 450. Like I'm saying, it really is all speculation. Let me know in the comments if you guys have heard anything more on it or whatever, but holy shit, there's a lot over here on this track that I never even seen. What the... I never even seen this part of this track right here, but yeah, so that's kind of my opinion on it. I hope Cianciarulo finds his place and figures out what he wants to do, but as of right now, it just doesn't quite seem like he's race ready for a 450. Maybe he's, overall time and skill. You could have said that when he first got into the 250 Supercross Championship. Oh, he's ready for a 450. He's out here smoking these dudes, but it just doesn't always really happen in a fairy tale scenario like that. So I want to let you guys know that I have all of my different playlists on my front page, whether it be game-specific playlist or series-specific playlist. So if you're looking for any particular game or particular series that you want to watch, I have it all laid out there in a pretty organized manner on my front page. There is a link in the description to donate to me if you want to support me, and if you can't or you just don't want to, I totally understand. That's why it's completely optional, but I will be listing my top 10 donators at the end of every single future video, and I will shout out every new donator at the end of a video, even if they're not top 10. And my email address is spencerturley@live.com, no space, no capital, and I do accept sponsorship offers. And you guys should also follow me on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Steam, all that different stuff at Spencer Turley, no space, no capital. So anyways, I appreciate you guys watching the videos. Later, dudes.